about you? Did you not feel weird about like how long were you in the orchestra for? Mhm.
Yeah, so at first I
And
did not.
how do you feel about it? Yeah,
Yeah, at first I was just happy to be making money for my tuition, which I was pretty desperate to
that's
pay.
fair. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't be like it's hustling at the end of the day, right? You gotta make what you gotta make. You gotta grab that bread and go. It's simple as that.
absolutely. Well
Simple as
said.
that. So it's literally like, uh, that's on me. But yeah, sorry, you were
Respect. Yeah,
saying.
keep
No,
going.
you're right.
So that's how it started off.
Yeah, and then think about, I was 21 years old. Think about the jobs that are available for a young woman without a college degree yet. I mean, and in that economy too, which was pretty bad in 2003.
Hmm.
I'd worked as a waitress and as an assistant and in these low-paying jobs where you're often disrespected. Now I'm making much more money to play violin for real. No one's hearing me, but I'm playing. It was easier work. It was better paid. So at first I was pretty happy to have the job and I was traveling everywhere, which was nice. But I worked for them for 4 years. And over that period of time, I started to actually feel a lot of effects of like being fake. So I started to have anxiety attacks on stage because I was up there and it really didn't matter what I sounded like a lot at all.
Hmm.
So I had a lot of time to think and to
Hmm.
look at people in the audience. And I started to have panic attacks really about the entire thing. And I ended up quitting because I just didn't want to be spending my life in a way like this. So the book kind of follows that whole journey of like,
Amazing.
starting out just being like, I'm making money and then being like, no, you
How
can't do this.
how long were you? How long were you there for?
For about 4 years. And I
Okay.
started when I was 21 and I quit. And the last gig I ever played was when I just turned 25, I think. So
Can you tell us
Okay.
about your first gig and then like your last gig?
sure.
Hmm.
The very first gig, I did not meet the composer. He was not there. I met a Russian violinist on a street corner in Manhattan. He's just kind of like, and he was very brusque. He's very Russian, like, just get in the car, no talking, like
Yeah,
very
that's how you know.
serious, right? And you can see me. I'm a pretty big
Okay.
hoot.
Okay.
Yeah, I talk all the time, as you can
Mhm.
tell, and laugh really loud and
Mhm.
kind of
Very
more
extroverted. Let's say
yes,
that.
Italian in my mannerisms and all of this. And he's just like this Russian guy, like this for a 4 hour drive to New Hampshire. And so I was just a little weirded out by,
Mhm.
and the next morning they put us up in hotel rooms. We get up the next morning and we go to this beautiful lake in New Hampshire. And they set up this tent and start playing violin and flute. And it's my job to be like, oh, do you like this music? Here's the CD you can buy. And people, as soon as they start that music, they press play on the CD recorder or the CD. It was a Sony Discman back then. Press play, and people just flood in and are like, "Oh, this music! What is this music? I'll take 10 CDs!" Like this sort of thing. So
Mhm.
I'm just like passing CDs and just money coming at me, like thousands and
Left,
thousands of
right, and
dollars.
center. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow. Hmm.
I mean, wow. Yeah.
And yeah, and like so the music you were playing, it was given to you on like sheet notes by like this composer figure, right?
Yeah.
He
And so
did it
when
the whole
I
thing. Hmm.
yeah, they had sheet music, and when I absolutely knew for sure this was a fake thing was that later that day in New Hampshire, the Russian violinist who I call Yevgeny in the book, he was like, "Do you want to play now?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely." So I get up behind the microphone, get my violin, and I have the sheet music in front of me, and he presses play on the recorder, and I immediately lose my place, right? Because there's no conductor. There,
Hmm.
I can't
Right?
really hear the
That's funny.
speakers. I don't know when to start, and I'm
Like,
just like,
when should I start? And the
yeah,
music's playing. And you're like,
exactly.
okay, I'll keep going.
Right.
I
I'm
guess
just
I'm
like kind of
playing.
like
Hmm.
just not even playing at that point because I'm just lost.
Hmm.
And when I look up, this song lasts like 2 or 3 minutes. It feels like a lifetime. And because I'm just so embarrassed, like it's so bad. And I look up and there's a crowd of people and they're all like, ah, like looking at me like I'm Isak Perlman or somebody, like the best violinist in the world and all applauding and being like, you're amazing. And I was like, oh. And that's when I knew for sure.
That sounds like a fun job. I'll be honest. I'll do that for a summer. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go like, okay. Yeah, sounds
Look
Yeah.
at me, and it's like,
And of course I got better and better. And I,
Mhm.
by the end of this, I really was playing exactly along to the
Do you
music
think,
and
yeah,
had,
do you think you could have been like a real violinist, like playing like an actual music? Or were you like, because you remember you said earlier, like you weren't that high league enough to, in music that, you need to be really, really good, right? So do you think you could have if you went for it legit?
It depends on like what you mean by legit. I mean, there's like rock bands out there like that use violinists and maybe something like that, but New York Philharmonic or a professional orchestra, absolutely not. Yeah, some people make their skills into what they are, but no, I was not good I was probably not even good enough for a good band, Sometimes people ask me to play for weddings who want a cheap violinist and,
you do it. You're like, yes,
sure.
I can play.
Yeah, I can play a little,
Every
enough.
night in my dreams.
Wait, so yeah, okay, cool. So that's your violin era, right? This is where you were a fake violinist. So right after that, you went into.
The chronology is this: I studied Middle Eastern studies in college. When I came out, I had this. That's when I got this violin job. But I thought that would just pay the bills. Meanwhile, I was looking for a serious job. I wanted to go to Egypt. Later, of course, by 2003, I wanted to go to Iraq and be a war reporter there and try to get accurate information. But there was nobody hiring for that, and Americans really had no appetite to actually have accurate information about anything, really. And so I kept on with the violin job was paying my bills. Eventually, after I quit the orchestra, I went to grad school for creative writing, and that's how I became a professor today. So I kind of just focus more on the academic side of writing instead of becoming a journalist. But the entire American news industry at that point was collapsing. The internet completely upended all of our newspapers. They were closing all the foreign bureaus. So, it used to be that every newspaper in America had hundreds of bureaus all over the world so that you could get real reporting from a lot of places. But in the early 2000s, they were closing all of that. I even went to the New York Times bureau chief in Cairo, and essentially every newspaper there with Americans told me the same thing, which is like, we're not hiring anybody, we might have stringers who are Egyptians to do our work for us, but we're not hiring like American reporters to go out and do in-depth reporting from here. And that was just,
that was just the finance of it, right? Is that you couldn't, like, no one was like hiring journalists then.
Yeah, and the newspapers themselves were shutting down and they were losing money. And now look where we are. I mean, we're in a pandemic where no one has any accurate information about like their local news, world news, these sorts of things. So
yeah,
it's sad to see. It's sad to see that even like when it comes to things like news, you're not sure who to trust and where to,
fake
look
news,
when you're looking. I mean,
fake
it's
violins,
everywhere.
fake backgrounds. What's going on?
What's going on with the world? Honestly, but seriously, like it saddens me that the news media is very, I'd say toxic, if that was the right sense of words to put it.